Good evening, Jack, and thanks for talking to us here at Metal Planet Music.
Hi Gary, how you doing, mate?
We're good, mate, and what a few weeks you've just had. I mean, landing back from your visit to the States and straight into download.
Yeah, it was quite interesting the first day of download because I was still really jet lagged, so it was I was stumbling around chatting to people and probably not making much sense, but it was probably a good thing to actually be at download. Otherwise, I would have just slept, and so it's very difficult to sleep through Iron Maiden. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that quote of yours on Facebook absolutely made us howl. Was, how do you find me in a big field? Well, I'm wearing an Iron Maiden shirt and a hat.
Well, yeah, we were just chatting about this, weren't we, before we came on the call? But
Yeah,
yeah, Rowan, who is my sound engineer, was at download, and this guy is, a fantastic sound engineer, one of the best that I've worked with. But his ability to locate people in crowds of people at download is absolutely rubbish. So we had several occasions where he just couldn't find me. But unfortunately, at download, everybody looks like me. So when I walk around St Albans, nobody looks like me. And in fact, when I go and get the train from St Albans, quite a lot of people are moving down the platform away from me. So there you go. That's what you get a download.
you become the norm. So fantastic weekend. It was your mum's birthday. What was your highlights other than mum's birthday, obviously?
Well, it's interesting because my mum's birthday has always been on download weekend. So she's, over the years, there's been a few occasions where actually a few years ago when it rained really heavily, me and Felipe, my drummer, we actually went back to my mum's after the second day because we were just like, this is disastrous. And we went back to, had a shower, got ready and went back the following day. And so we invaded my mum on her birthday and, just trashed her house and then went back to download the next day. And so, yeah, it was great to see her on Friday and hang out. And because the last couple of years, I've not actually seen her on her birthday because of obviously the pandemic. So that was a lot of fun as well. She didn't ask me to get her an Iron Maiden t-shirt, though. That could have been her birthday present, but, maybe next year.
Hey, there's always room in there, always room for another tour shirt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you're there, you've got the Wagons, the Crows, but basically, the guys we've come through the scene with, hitting the main, the bigger stages. That's got to be a buzz and give you hope yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'd never actually seen Massive Wagons perform a full set before. I've caught them at festivals, and usually, I guess I maybe have been on the same bill, and so you kind of just chat to one another backstage. But maybe that's happened a few times. But with Download, I thought their set was great, and in a way that I knew most of the songs anyway, but to see them perform it live and see, the level of energy that they give, I just thought it was great. And those damn Crows as well. I mean, those guys really do deserve to be on those bigger stages, and it feels fitting that they've achieved it. I mean, I think the first time I saw those damn Crows was probably about 4 years ago at the Borderline in London, and they just absolutely smashed it, and they were the first on that night. And it was like, why the hell are this band on first? Because they were absolutely brilliant. And so to see them on the main stage at Download, I think they thoroughly deserve it.
Yeah. And that opens doors, and it's giving everybody else like yourself opportunities to step through.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, isn't it, with this stuff? You always need people to be the sort of front runners in any kind of movement or scene or whatever. It's a weird one because I've sort of become part of, I guess, that new wave of classic rock, new wave of rock and roll scene, which wasn't a deliberate thing. I kind of started out as a blues artist, and
for sure, yeah, back in 2013 with the first album.
Yeah, so I've sort of fallen in with that scene, but it has detractors and it has people who absolutely love it. I guess I've really enjoyed getting to know a lot of the bands and the audiences that love that music. So I met a lot of them actually after Wagons on Sunday, because it was like, a lot of their fans kind of, I guess, have come across my music possibly through, getting into Massive Wagons and exploring some of the other bands that are that share some sort of common ground with them. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it's good to see. And, your progression, as you say, from 2013's Feather and Falls, from more a purer blues now through to the all-out rock of the new track appearing on the EP forthcoming, Days of Thunder. It's been quite a progression.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this a lot over the years that I got into blues music really originally through getting into Zeppelin. And actually, the first band I really got into was the Stone Roses. And the reason that I got into Zepp was John Squire. He did an interview with probably Guitarist magazine back in about 95, 96. And he talked about Jimmy Page in this interview. So I then got into Zepp. And actually, the Stone Roses was quite a short-lived fascination for me, whereas Zeppelin, I've been into them for like 30 years now. And yeah, I think that automatically what happens with a lot of artists when they get into Zepp or Sabbath or whatever, they then look at the influences of those bands. So you end up back at the blues.
Yeah.
And so I'm still playing blues shows. I still will do that. I still and really enjoy playing acoustic blues. I play along with blues at home. That's kind of what I do to chill out. But I've always had this rock side of me as well that I think came out in the latest album, The Hammer Falls, and then, as you say, to work with Kevin Shirley, who one of the best rock producers that there is out there. So I think it's gone a bit heavier, basically.
Yeah, and you've received a little bit of what I feel is unfair criticism from the blues audience that first connected with you back 7-8 years ago. As you've progressed, I mean, I don't look at it as a narrowing. You've expanded. How do you?
I think it's fine if people don't dig the stuff that I've put out that's been slightly different to the blues stuff. A lot of bands, when they sort of change styles, I think they may be coming to a little bit of criticism, because people like to understand an artist and they like to know what they're getting with an artist. And so if you buy a ticket to somebody and you're expecting 90 minutes of BB King, and then they come out and they play Motley Crue, it's a different vibe, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I do get it, but I just don't write music in a conscious way of I need to write a rock album because it'll sell. I need to write a blues album because it'll sell. I just write music.
Yeah.
So,
and the overriding thing for me, having watched you and reviewed you, in the media sort of perspective for the last year or so, is the imagery that is conjured up. And it's a real strong imagery in my mind that I don't get all that often from artists. Is that a conscious thing with you when you write?
Do you mean in terms of like the vibe of the songs creating an imagery?
Yeah, for sure. Listening to that last album, The Hammer Falls, and it just took me on a narrative through this whole story, and it all just came flooding out, and I'm like, just wow. Do you write those songs with an image in mind, a thought in mind?
Yeah, I think part of what plays into that with the last record was the artwork as well, which Revelation Studio did. It's a brilliant artist called Anastasio over in Spain. And I've never actually met the guy, but we're touring Spain in September. So I'm actually going to hook up with him for the first time, which would be great.
Sweet.
But I spoke to him a lot about the kind of visual element. And I've talked about this, I guess, over the years about I'm a visual artist. So I make drawings. I've done that since I was a kid. Before I played guitar, I was making drawings. And so, my fascination when I was a teenager with kind of anime and that sort of stuff. And my favorite film for a long period was Akira. I just love that sort of thing, that kind of apocalyptic imagery, which I guess some of the new album has. And it's a bit weird because I tried to write positive songs and I've always done that. But I think, perhaps despite me saying that I wasn't consciously trying to write a song about the pandemic, I think that probably elements of that came through.
For sure. And, what I felt, and I had this sort of rock and roll preacher thing in mind since, when you stormed the stage at Love Rocks, and I'm like, this just so fits the music.
Yeah, that was a great festival of Rocks. It was the first real big gig that we did back after the lockdown period. And looking back, we did some very strange things during lockdown. I mean, we actually managed to play a show in France in 2020 in September, and then everything kind of kicked off again. So when we went out to France, we were like, we're getting back on the road, and then it all went into shutdown again. So it's actually like, 10 months later, we played Love Rocks, and what a brilliant festival, great organisers, and they've been a great champion of some really cool bands that have gone on to that sort of next level. Chris Barris band have been there several times, and obviously Chris has moved on to play Download. So that's a really great achievement. But yeah, I think it feels nice to be kind of part of that community. And so whether I see myself as new wave of classic rock or whatever you want to call it or not, that community is brilliant, and whatever that movement has fostered in terms of people coming together is a really positive thing.
That's it. It's one platform amongst many that your broad spectrum of music can appeal to.
Yeah, it felt weird doing some of the new stuff at Love Rocks last summer, because it was like the first time we'd played some of those songs. And so there was an energy to it, that a nervous energy, because I, mainly trying to remember all the bloody lyrics, because some of the lyrics in the new record I've moved on from the "oh, she left me, isn't life crap" thing. So you need to remember those sorts of things. But it's been a lot of fun playing these songs, and it's been fun to play a lot of shows where we've played some heavier stuff rather than blues shuffles and slow blues. I mean, I still dig that stuff, but yeah. I think the live shows become more dynamic, so hopefully that's more entertaining.
For sure, and you can mix it up, no doubt of that.
Yeah, man. I've been working today actually on the set list for the forthcoming tours, and we will be mixing it up. I am going to chuck in some blues stuff actually, and do a couple of things that probably are a little bit unexpected. But you've got to keep evolving,
Most definitely.
You can't do the same thing all the time, Gary. So that's what I try to do.
Absolutely. And there's, if you've got something new in the locker, let's unleash it. Let's not keep it under wraps.
Yeah, man. I mean, I wasn't going to write a record this year. I was like, I've sort of been on a bit of a roll where I've done maybe 6 albums now, if you include the RHR stuff. And I was like, let's take a bit of a breather. But I've already written most of the next record. And so, you've got to just keep going with it. Otherwise, I think you just stagnate. You've just got to keep evolving.
Because you've got the EP, DVD bundle package coming out in September.
It is, yeah. And actually, they've just arrived.
Oh, well, let's have a sneak preview.
So they look pretty cool.
That's sick, man, yeah.
That's a really great picture there from Winter's End that Darren Griffiths took, which somehow made me look like a rock star. And there you go. There's your DVD and CD.
Nice.
And this DVD it's just full of erotica, which is really. I mean, no, it's my music. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be good. You've slipped in the new track, Days of Thunder, which to me it's a V8 Mustang. It's hammering down the highway.
Well, do you know what? I wrote that song just after I'd done a photo shoot with Rob Blackham, who's done most of my photo shoots for about 5 or 6 years, and we rented a Ford Mustang for the day. And it was written not like that night. It wasn't like when musicians say this thing happened and then I wrote a song about it, man. But there's a definite vibe, and I actually went through this phase of doing a lot of research into Ford Mustangs, and I was did what everyone does, watch Bullet. But it's got that vibe. It's got that sort of maiden gallop as well. And, it was recorded in a really different way to my last album, where we spent best part of a year recording those songs. We recorded Days of Thunder in about 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours. It was, and Laz and Felipe, who play on it, they hadn't really even heard the song before we went to the studio.
Wow.
So it was the day before we went on tour last October. And I said, look, this opportunity's come up with Kevin Shirley. I want to do a brand new song, but it needs to be done this week. I've booked some studio time at Anchor Baby Studios over in Kent. And the guys are a bit like, yeah, but we start the tour on Saturday. You want to go into a studio on Friday? And I was like, yeah, we've been rehearsing. I think it's a good thing to do. And we just cranked it up and played it. And yeah, it was all done really, really quickly. So I'm really pleased with it.
Proper old school, sort of like almost playing live in the studio.
Yeah, I mean, it was live in the studio. The only thing that was really kind of, multiple takes was the guitar solo, I think, because I hadn't written a guitar solo or anything. So we jammed through that a few times. And it was a little, I think the first few takes were a little bit like Kirk Hammett on that Year and a Half in the Life of Metallica, where he's trying to do the Unforgiven solo, and he's just absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kirk Hammett is slightly better than me, so he probably got to the end point quicker than I did. But the vocals, I think we only did the vocals 2 or 3 times, and that's not how I would normally do it. You know, you'd spend probably a whole day doing vocals, but we were on the clock, and it wasn't like we could come back the next day because we were starting a tour. So yeah, I'm really pleased with it, and so hopefully people will dig that song. The only thing is, we've been rehearsing it and actually having to do it live. It's you either do it at the beginning or the end of the set, because it's like a full-on track, and I think afterwards you probably sit down.
Yeah, because what I've noticed now, there are a number of bands that are taking what was their set ender, like Chris Barris and Hail Mary, the Wagons and Back to the Stack, and flicking it on the head, and it's becoming their set opener. And you think, wow.
Well, it's probably a good thing that because I missed Chris on Friday at Download, and it's probably a good thing I missed him, because I was so out of it and smashed that I probably would have thought that was the end of his set and gone home. But yeah, I did know. I went to see him in Camden a few weeks ago, and he started with Hail Mary, and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But it's a great tune, so maybe we need to mix up the set list a little bit, and start with one of the hits. I haven't got any hits though, so that's the problem.
Oh, I mean, we know everyone loves Who Feeds the Wolf and all that sort of thing, It's all about looking forward, isn't it? And we're halfway into the new year now. The new year? That's not the right way of saying it, is it? Well, the year. And you're looking forward to the next half. What's other than the EP DVD bundle, what have you got planned?
Well, it's going to be pretty crazy the next 6 months. We're going to Spain in September, and that's kind of coinciding with the release of the EP. So we're playing Rocking the Bowl, I think that's the 9th of September. Then straight after that, we're off to Spain for 2 weeks. And then October kicks off the UK tour. And then we've got some festival dates sort of at the tail end of that. But in the midst of all of that, I'm actually going back into the studio and starting work on the next album. So I've got a block of dates in to just kind of get cracking with that. And that's really exciting. I'm working with Josiah Manning from Chris Barris Band.
Oh, wow.
So we've been doing a bit of co-writing, which is really cool. I've never really written with anyone previously, but Josiah's just brilliant. He's a multi-instrumentalist, really gets melody, which is my big thing. Like whether it's a guitar part, whether it's a bass or whatever, you need to have hooks in your songs. And so the new stuff it's early days of it, but the new stuff so far is sounding really cool. So looking forward to getting and doing that.
And congratulations that you're working with Josiah. Knowing bands that have worked with him, very recently, like you say, he's just an incredibly talented guy. And as Chris says, don't tell him that,
Yeah, man. I mean, he played a bit of guitar on my last record, and the track Halo, which Chris Barris shot the video for, the intro bit. This is an example of how good Josiah is, that he added this sort of lick over the intro, which for me is the kind of hook on the song, really. And he sent me this voicemail message, and he just said, "Look, I've added this in. Here's the MP3. Just check to see whether you like it." And I loved it. And so there's little things where, you've got a song, you've written a song, but then it's how do you make it even better? And Josiah is great at kind of taking those ideas and just sort of merging them into a sort of really powerful but unique finished piece. So yeah, it's going to be fun to work with him.
Okay, and so any working title on the album yet?
I haven't finished writing it, man. We're basically starting in terms of the songwriting process and that kind of thing. So we'll just have to see how it goes. I mean, the last record took about 12 months to kind of put together. So, you know, we'll probably be looking at the sort of summer of next year, tail end of next year. But it's interesting where titles come from. I always get a bit panicky about album titles. Who Feeds the Wolf was, yeah, where the hell did that even come from? I think it was something to do with, I don't know, probably like probably something to do with Game of Thrones or something like that. It probably came from. But The Hammer Falls was definitely a something that came through during lockdown when I basically binge watched Vikings. And then, so everything, I was like, I'm going to get a Vikings, you know, like a Nordic tattoo and all this sort of stuff. So the we toned it down a little bit in terms of the final artwork, but I remember putting that together and thinking, you know, we'll have this Viking on the front, you know, with a big hammer, and that could have looked really, really naff.
I think it'd have been a certain epicness of it, because that kind of.
I'll tell you what, in terms of titles, I thought about calling my fourth solo album Fort, but then Slash bloody nicked it. That was the title of his album, so I can't use that anymore.
Don't. But yeah, I mean, so we got the EP, the DVD, dates, Spain. It's looking like it's going to be a great end to the year. Obviously, we haven't talked about NAMM, have we? And the American trip. Yeah,
man. That was really cool. So yeah, just before download, I was in Los Angeles, which was great, and I performed a few sets at NAMM, which was a bit of a dream come true, really, to play in America. But I'm going back next year, so I'm going to go back to America at some stage next year, and talking about doing some full band shows over there, which would be really cool. But yeah, NAMM was great. I mean, it's one of those things where you just you're sort of constantly bumping into really famous people, and you kind of pretend that you belong there. That's how to describe it. I was at a gig just after I arrived. I went to see Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses. And, you know, he was just stood around at the bar, and I was sort of like, yeah, that was the noise I made.
Welcome to the world's noisiest phone.
I shat myself. No, it was just one of those where I was just like, you know, trying not to be starstruck by meeting people. But then, you know, I met Jared James Nichols whilst I was over there, and he was just super sweet. And yeah, it was a bit of a sort of life-changing experience in some ways, because as a musician, I've always wanted to go to Los Angeles. I've always wanted to go to Anaheim and NAMM. And yeah, to be out there, actually the first couple of days, I felt like I was in a bit of a blur, because I just thought, you know, and then the nerves of actually having to perform at NAMM started to kick in. But it was really cool. Fabrizio Grossi from Supersonic Blues Machine lent me a guitar, which was really cool. And I was terrified about losing it or something happening to the guitar. But, you know, he was very, very sweet, and kind of looked after me the first day, and sort of told me what to do and what not to do whilst I was out there. So, yeah, it was wicked.
I mean, it's just got to be a massive thing for pushing your career forward.
Yeah, I think people that I met over there discussing dates in different countries, and as a networking opportunity, NAMM is obviously a really great thing. I mean, I was originally just going to go over and just hang out there for a week, and I'd never been to NAMM before, but then got offered the chance to perform at it, which was really cool. I wrote a new song whilst I was out there, which I was going to play, but then because I thought, yeah, that's quite a cool story. If I wrote this song and performed it in America for the first time, then thought I'll never remember the lyrics. And I didn't really want to have loads of lyric sheets out in front of me. I thought that might look a bit naff. But yeah, so we'll see what happens next year, and whether it manifests itself in terms of some more shows.
Awesome. Thank you ever so much. And
cool, man.
We've got just a couple of minutes left, so we'll knock the recording there.
Cheers, man.